Good evening and welcome to Nurturing Our Roots. This is your host, Antoinette. I want to welcome you to our special segment tonight of the show because it's something that we need to talk about. And what is that? We need to talk about what is happening in our community. Our history, our story, our legacy is full of rich history to explore and share. But over the past couple of decades, we have seen a shift in that history. I would like to welcome my special guest tonight, three men who I truly admire in our community. I would like to welcome Dr. Pastor Matthews Ware, Brother Lewis Allen, and Bobby Ginn, three men who I have total respect for as leaders in the community. Welcome, everyone. How are you?
Doing
Good. Thank you for having us.
well.
It is a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have each one of you to come on and to share what you see, what everybody's talking about what is going on in our community. But you know what? It's time for us to get into it now. It's time for us to talk about those things that we see in the community. So I would like to start off with Pastor Ware, then Brother Lewis, and then Bobby. Please tell me a little bit briefly about yourself.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Miss Antoinette, for having us. My name is Dr. Matthew Ware. I pastor a church in Granite City, Illinois, called Love Fellowship Outreach Ministries. I'm also the entrepreneur of a outreach ministry called Warehouse Ministries, where we just try to engage resources to help those that are in need within the communities. And then last but not leastly, I am the Dean of Lifeheimer Institute, where we're trying to educate our people to be better in the community. And I'm just glad to be on this platform tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Lewis.
I'm Lewis, Lewis Allen, also known as a radio personality as Lewis Ali from the South. Uh, I'm the grandson of civil rights icon Lewis Allen, who was murdered in 1964. I'm a community activist and also a business person in the community. I'm very, very honored and think it's very, very incredibly wise of you, Dr. Harrell, to bring us all together this afternoon.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Ginn.
Yes, good evening to everyone. My name is Bobby Ginn Jr. I am the owner of BJ Ginn Funeral and Cremation Services here in Amite, Louisiana. Also, a local entrepreneur of BJ Ginn Trucking, where we haul logs for Warehouser. But also, I'm a community activist within my local community. I believe in mentorship. I believe in getting our young men together and as well as ladies and doing our best in guiding them the best way possible. Even in my young age, I had that growing up, and it's something that I wanted to continue. And I try to do that on a daily basis. Ms. Horrell can definitely vouch for that. But I am so happy to be a part of this. Thank you for having me and the rest of us here. And I look forward to the details that we will discuss this evening.
As you all know, we have crisis, a major crisis in our community all over the United States, all over the world. And it seems to be that we're normalizing some of these things that is going on that is certainly plaguing our community, disrespect and respect. I want to start off with you, Pastor Ware, Dr. Ware. Do you think there's a breakdown in the family structure where disrespect and respect is concerned? Is there a breakdown?
Yes, I absolutely believe that there is a systematic breakdown that has been created from generations before. I believe that dignity and respect was one of those things that was driven out through the process of slavery and then the antebellum period and then corresponding civil rights movement. So whenever you lose a sense of respect for yourself, then you can't teach that level of respect. So I think that there is a systematic generational level of disrespect that has been taught, that we have to relearn, to have this level of respect and dignity for ourselves so that we can re-teach it to our children and our loved ones.
Thank you. Brother Lewis?
I wanted to start out by saying something that Dr. Martin Luther King said. He talked about the appalling silence of good people. We've become
the kind of people that don't teach our history or our heritage or our legacy to our young people. And so Dr. Francis Quest Wilson said, self respect is the foundation of justice. We can't get justice because we've been victims of integration and we've lost our self respect and our pride for ourselves. And for some reason, those of us who've kind of made it don't feel the need to teach the history of what we've had to endure in this country. And so our young people are being systematically, socially engineered into a type of filth and debauchery that makes it look as though our ancestors, if they were doing this type of stuff, were worthy to be put in a cage. Mm-hmm. And so now more than ever, and I call you Dr. Antoinette Harrell, and I talk to my wife and I talk to other women who I really respect about the image of Black women and men, but particularly Black women, because Mary Cloud Bethune said, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made it very popular, that a nation can rise no higher than the moral standards of its women. Mm-hmm. And so when you start looking at America, and I've lived outside of the country, and people see our imagery, and you see a woman like Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B as the ambassadors for Black womanhood talking to President Joe Biden, then it makes the rest of the world see or have the idea that Black women are just low frequency, low vibration women, and Black men are all simps and degenerates. And so I think now more than ever, the good people have to lift their voice and either
even louder now,
themselves from the bad people or correct the bad people. And many of our young people would change.
You're over your minute and a half. We're going to come back to you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Bobby, let's go to you.
Okay. What I certainly believe is that sense of pride is no longer there. Mm-hmm. You know, there was a time, and I hear this, you know, all the time in the community. As you know, I was around older people all of my life. You know, there's this thing that we fall into. I don't want my children to have it as hard as I had it. Mm-hmm. And I think that we became comfortable. Each generation became a little more relaxed. Mm-hmm. And then there became an issue because that pride was no longer instilled there, that pride for education, that pride for self-awareness, you know, confidence within yourself. None of that, all of that began to diminish generationally. And the younger the parents are, the worse that's getting. And that's something that we're seeing. And so, you know, that early development of generations, you know, because usually generations don't develop to after your 20s, but it's happening at age 15. You know, grandparents are having to step in, and they're a little more laxed on grandchildren than they were their children. And we see the effects of that now. As it's trickled down through the years, I believe that there is
Thank you, Mr. Ginn, because that's very important. We're going to go back to that, but I want to show the Black community then and the Black community now. So let me just go through this brief presentation here.
When you have these woke revolutions, it requires all of us at some point to say, no, not going to do.
I just want to ask the question, who really cares to save a world in despair? Who really cares?
Can you all see the slide?
No, we can't.
No.
Okay.
It popped up for a second, then it went away.
Okay. Just 1 minute.
Mother.
We always think we have something until we get there, huh?
Yep, that's how it always goes.
But in the meantime, I want to show pictures of where we are now. Let me just get back to sharing the screen again. Here we go. I can always pull that up later. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to show what we're talking about when we talk about then and now, the difference of the young people, the chaperones that was always there with them, young women with respect for themselves, young men with respect for themselves. And there was always chaperones around with our young people. And that's what I remember. I remember there was always an adult. There was always something expected of you to carry yourself in a certain way and represent not only yourself, but the family.
Mm,
So if you look at then and you look at now, it's a big difference.
yeah.
How did we get here? How did we get here? And what can we do?
Mhm.
Okay, coming back to what all of you said, the breakdown of the family. You know that we have lost respect when we start to see what is happening in our community today. Do you think in today's society what is wrong have become right and what is right is wrong?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pastor Ware, then coming to Brother Lewis.
As Brother Lewis said, absolutely. Even the scriptures talk about people that call good evil and evil good. I think
That's
what we
right.
have to look at from a sociological perspective is this whole idea of values and norms
Mm-hmm.
that are created within a community, that are created within a culture. um, those parents, those strict parents, those two-parent homes, those Christian or religious environments, bred the children and the offspring to have these boundaries and these sets of values and norms. But as time went and the deconstruction of the family and the breakdown of the family and the fatherlessness in the community and the roles of young parents becoming younger and younger. So then a lot of these values get remade or reconstructed based on, as Brother Lewis said earlier, this image that people see of being the norm when it's not the norm. And so when you got babies teaching babies how to be respectful and they've never been taught to be respectful, then you've just got a culture of disrespect. And so we've got to go back to having these type of conversations where we teach values and norms to our children, even from a young age. We can't expect the school to do it. We can't
That's
expect the
right.
streets to do it.
That's
It has to start in our
At
homes,
home.
in our
At home.
presence, and letting them know that this is the value that will make you a young, outstanding black man. These are the values that will make you a young, outstanding black woman, black families. And these values have to be taught at an early age. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Brother
Oh,
Lewis.
oh my God. Pastor Ware said so much, You know, and I want to be mindful of time because I want to be respectful to time. But we're the first generation of Black people who have raised their children without the children having an enemy.
Wow.
Everything in nature has an enemy.
Wow.
Do cats have an enemy?
Yep.
Do their enemy is the dog? Does a rat have an enemy? Their enemy is the cat. So why are we raising Black children to teach them that they don't have an enemy when it takes a Black boy having an enemy in order to motivate him to solve the problems that the previous generation of Black people didn't solve? And that's how you got all your race men who built Black Wall Street. They were building Black Wall Street based on the influence and the pain and the suffering of the Black community that their mothers and grandmothers told them about. My grandmother told me about the pain of the Black community, and that's what inspired me to want to rebuild my grandfather's business.
Yes.
But in today's market, we don't talk enough about what the elders accomplished and we mixed them up and put them into integrated schools where white women taught our children to love the system more than the desire to build a new system. And that's where we're at. We've been hypocrites as elders, and our hypocrisy and lies about, for instance, I don't need a man. Is that the truth? If it's not the truth, then we need to say it, because the silence of those who are not saying things is speaking louder
Yes,
than
yes,
those of us who are saying things.
that's
Yeah.
right. Thank you. Mhm.
Yeah, certainly. I agree with that greatly. We were just talking about that the other day, the I don't need situation, uh,
Mhm.
which brings me directly to my point about where acceptance and personal boundaries have been confused and are either misplaced. The I'm just me. I need people to accept me for who I am,
I'm expressing
Right.
myself. Yeah.
versus the concealing your personal business as necessary, because we were taught that there were certain things you didn't share, there were certain things that you did share, and nowadays everything is just out in the open. Take it as it is, however you want. I don't need you, no matter who you are. A lot of feedback somewhere, but that is a lot of the issues that we're dealing with.
Could everybody put themselves on mute while each other is speaking? That way we know where it's coming. Okay, wonderful.
Okay,
Mhm.
good, good. I don't know. Could you guys
We
hear
can
me?
hear you. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that was my point there. When we had that confusion there, those boundaries are no longer in place, and that's something that we need to reestablish. And it's only going to happen, as Dr. Ware said, through the family dynamic. No one else
Yes,
is going
ma'am.
to put that in place for us.
Mhm.
We put it in place for ourselves. Our elders and ancestors put it in place for ourselves, for themselves. And we have to realize that we have to do that for ourselves. And I thank God that I have the parents that I had. I was raised by older parents. I was telling a friend of mine just yesterday how at one point I was embarrassed and ashamed that I had an old soul growing up. I didn't fit in. I just wasn't a part of
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
crowd. However, I'm so grateful for that today.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to God for it. So
Right.
we need to get back to those attributes.
I want to point out something too. My father didn't raise me. My mother, but let me tell you, I had all my mother's brothers, all of her first cousins. I wish I would have had one father, because by the time I got through being chastised by 7 brothers and then 21st cousins, males, that one father could not have ever probably made me feel like all those eyes was watching me. I remember when I became of age and I went out and I stayed out past 12 o'clock, and my mother's first cousin called me on the phone and he said, "Hey, how you doing, baby?" I said, "I'm doing fine." I thought it was unusual for him to call me in the first place with that. He said, "Well, I want to talk to you." He said, "I was told that you stayed out. Well, let me just run this by you. Don't make me come down to New Orleans." And that person was my cousin Pete Richardson, and he didn't play. So it was the village. My point is, it was the village. When we was children, my uncles and aunts that was in their 20s, they seemed like they was 45 and 50, because they didn't lower themselves to our standards. And when I see grandmothers on the floor twerking, now let's go back. The grandmother, and you all can unmute yourselves right now. The grandmothers are twerking on the floor, on hands and knees, and the grandchildren are saying, "Get it, Momo, get it, Momo," and get mad
Man,
if somebody says something
man.
about it. But we have become silent in our own communities
Yeah.
about the things that we should have been speaking out, speaking up, and be ready to deal with whatever we have to deal with. Because what I find, if you say something, you're the bad person.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're the bad person.
Yeah.
So we have accepted, because nobody want to say anything anymore, but silence is consent.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, a grandmother on the floor twerking is disrespectful on every level.
Degenerate.
She's
Yeah.
supposed to be setting an example for her granddaughters and great granddaughters
Yeah.
and all the women in the community.
Yes.
So we got to break down when we see our women. And Brother Lewis sent me a video, and I sent him another one. I said they can't go any further, any lower than what they have. The next thing is just have sex in the street
They will.
Yeah.
They
if we
will.
don't say anything.
Yeah.
They will.
Miss Antoinette, can I interject
Yes.
something real briefly? As the brothers have saying, and I'm enjoying you all tremendously. One of the things that I look at is the whole correlation between when you're taught to self-hate is equated to self-disrespect.
Absolutely.
Taught to self-love is equated to self-respect. Those things that you talked about with your cousin calling you and different things like that. I can remember growing up in extreme poverty. I can remember other people growing up in extreme poverty, but there were still some strong
Yes.
values that were taught in extreme poverty. That if you only had a few clothes, making sure your clothes were clean,
Mhm.
because that was self-respect. Making
Mhm.
sure your body was clean, that was self-respect. Making sure that you gave honor to whom honor was due, that you honored your parents, you honored your grandparents, you honored the elderly. So though we were living in poverty, we were really rich because we had all of these
Yeah.
values that
Yeah.
were being poured into us that now make us the stand out in our community, because we have this sense of self-love. That's what a lot of our young people are missing, because when the child, the mama, and the grandmother are all in the same car going to the club together, and they getting drunk and high on the way there, then who's supposed to set the standard of what self-love and self-respect is? And then when you have these babies that come up and they're watching that, because they're going to learn more
That's
about
a
what
norm.
they see. That's their norm. That's their value. So we've got to go back to the very basic, teaching self-love. Because when you love yourself, you will respect yourself. When you love yourself, then you'll love others, and you'll give that level of respect to others. I wanted to interject that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, the elephant in the room that's missing in the Black community is the man. Remember when it said in the Bible, and there was no man to till the earth.
Yeah.
So you can't instill anything if there's no man. And this is a painful thing because people don't like, I'm well aware of where we are, and people don't like it, but they systematically took the Black man
Yes, they
out of
did.
the Black family.
Yes, they did.
And they've done that for a reason. And Pharaoh had a conspiracy to kill all the Black boys and spare the women and put his seed or his value system into the women, not for the glory of God, but for them to glorify his filthy way of life.
Yeah.
We run interference for that. So they have to kill the Black man and spare the Black woman, and then manipulate and use those Black women that he can to keep our community like it is. And so it's so difficult. And Minister Farrakhan said something at the Million Man March. He said, he gave us the 8 steps of atonement. And he said the first step was the hardest step, because you have to endure, I have to, endure the ridicule, because the first step is to point out what's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're hypocrites because not on this panel, but in our community, Dr. Antoinette, they will attack you as a Black woman for holding the standard of morality and decency that generations of Black women held. You're the last, they call it in the street like a throwback. You're the last of those women of that ilk, women who want to hold the standard of what their husbands and fathers and brothers and uncles died for.
Yeah.
And it pains me, but
and what the women before me, because when I saw the grandmother on the floor twerking, my dear beloved grandmother crossed my mind, and I said, "Thank you, grandmother. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for being the woman that you was, the example, because then I would not have known the difference. I want to go to Bobby. Bobby, you hear it every day. You see it. You're a young man in the community. What do you think about today's generation that is really pushing their children to curse, then video it and then put it online and think it's funny and cute? Let me hear from you, Bobby. You, that generation.
What I can say is that it's because, once again, it's not taught what's right and what's wrong.
Mhm,
There's no man in the family. The woman is trying to lead, they're trying to work, they're trying to take care of. And so there's a negligence that begins to set in place because no one is in their proper place. And what I mean by that is, my mom worked and my dad worked. I saw dad work every day. He got up and he went to work. Rain, sleet, or snow, whether he was sick, whatever he done, he provided for the family. My mom ensured that we done what we were supposed to do
mhm,
as children, and vice versa. If there needed to be some reinforcement came from dad. We understood what his morals were, what he wanted us to do. We were to respect
mhm,
mom in all circumstances. And so now you don't have that backing anymore in the family. So the family dynamic has changed. That
mhm.
systematic situation that's been put in place that
That's
has
their
removed
agenda. Yes.
our, us from. So there's a thing, you're ignorant to the things that you don't know. You're ignorant to the things that you have no involvement in. That they never saw a true family dynamic. Let's say that. And so, like you say, you think it's right. You think it's okay. And so then what happens is we see that these things are hilarious. They're funny to them at this moment. But when that child gets older
Mhm,
and they become a part of the system, because that cursing led to physical abuse,
mhm,
not to others, but even their mother, their grandmother, their sisters, their brothers. Um, and at some point, one of two things end up happening. They're either in jail system, or they're seeing me, who's the undertaker. And then we have a problem there both ways,
mhm,
because our men are no longer men.
mhm.
And that's the issue that we're having. And what's got to take place is the type conversations that we're having, but it
And
needs,
all over. It has to go from the
needs to,
church,
exactly,
the
it
mosque, the
needs to
community,
happen
everywhere.
broad. It
Mhm,
needs to happen from people who are in high places,
mhm,
our people, black men who are in high places, and black women who will understand that we're not degrading you as a woman, but we're understanding that there is a place for everyone in this world. God said it that way. There's no way around it. And when something comes up and we say that a man is necessary, it's not to say that a woman cannot be independent. We don't want to get that confused, but it is to say that that woman needs that man as well as that man needs that woman. That's
if
the way
we're
God
going to
created
line up according to what the Heavenly Father and Pastor
it.
Ware, you know this, you
That's right.
know how we need to be lining up, and we are out of balance.
Yeah. How they
We are
say,
out of balance.
it gives you the headship order.
That's right. Right. We are out of
It's set.
balance, and I'm gonna tell you something. I
Mhm.
think if we don't stop it, we have went and we are seeing our young women basically walking the street naked, and they're looking at some of these entertainers who are in their 50s, still think they got it, and leading these young girls down a road of no return if we don't say it's not acceptable to walk to be naked. It's not acceptable, sweetheart, to leave your house with pajamas on and what do you call those things they put? The
Bonnet.
nightcaps
Mhm.
on their heads. We got to talk about it, folks.
Yeah, never would. There was never a time that that would happen. And let me make this comment. I this past week I was all over social media. There's a thing that take place here. Of course, we were talking about twerking, and I was having this conversation here at the funeral home the other day. A whole bunch of that's on the internet now, and I made a post about. I said, "Man, y'all gonna make me start going to these pool parties," because it was something at a pool party, and it was a joke. It went all over the place, and we were talking here in the office, and I said, "Guys, here's the thing. Your view and your perspective is everything, and here's why. You look at that video as one for one thing
Hmm.
and one thing only. And that's what's appealing to the eye. It's not that you see a wife. It's not that you see a beautiful person who you can build and have a family with. And that is where we have to realize to get those true values instilled again. Because when the sexuality is put in its perspective and its proper place, then those values stay in their proper place. Because what happens is it becomes a joke, it's fun, it looks good, but you don't look at that as a true value. And any true man, real man, doesn't look at that as any value to him in any way, form, or fashion. And it's a sad reality, but it's the truth.
Well, I want to say this with
Mhm.
today's generation, they're not looking at the future, they're looking at the now. There's a question coming from someone in the chat room. What do you do if a man doesn't want to be in their place? So, and I understand that because, like I said, my father wasn't in the house, but I had so many other fathers, and so she want to know, what do you do? Because some women are having to be, they having to be the man, they having to be the woman. Because I can tell you, I know quite a few men. They're in bad shape.
Oh yeah. So
They're in bad
let me if I can start with that.
shape. Then
Here's
to
the
Brother
thing.
Lewis, and then Brother Pastor Webb.
Yes,
Here's
ma'am.
the thing. It's just like this. You know, it's easier to tear down much quicker than it is to build back up.
Yes,
This won't happen. This restructuring won't happen overnight. And there are going to be people who don't want to be in their proper place because they have went through the time that they came was where they didn't get that direction. They didn't understand that. But if there is a man, doesn't have to be that father, because like I said, these mentors, I had several. If
mhm,
there is a man that you can trust and that you can instill your trust within, where he doesn't mind guiding your child, allow him to do so, allowing to help him and or her in whatever way, form, or fashion. Um, and if there's a situation where you and that father are not together, um, look for a man that meets the qualities that your family dynamic needs. That is what I would suggest.
thank you.
So there are people out there that are not willing because they don't understand it. It's not that I'm willing since they don't want to. You can't want anything that you don't know about. You can't want
Right.
anything that you have no knowledge of. And so that's going to be a door that's going to take a while to readjust and restructure, in my opinion. But if we stick to the course, let's just stay the course and see what the end is going to bring, and we're going to see a definite restructuring that's going to happen worldwide. But it's going to have to be constantly addressed and talked about.
Thank you. Brother Lewis, would you please answer this question? Can you talk about the normalcy of my baby mama, my baby daddy? That's what we hear lots of identification. My baby mama, my baby daddy. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that we're in an identity crisis, and we can't address identity without addressing structure.
Mm-hmm.
The previous question was a deep question the sister asked about, and I'll get to your question, about there not being a man around or something to
Or
that
what do you do if they don't want to assume
be
that?
a man. They don't want to be a man. Well, this is the thing. We have a choice. And what we're doing is we're choosing men who are on a low frequency. And unfortunately, as brothers, we're choosing women who are on a low frequency.
Yes, sir. I agree with
And then
that.
we're trying to make the wrong man right and the wrong woman right. Place of just finding the right person to begin with. Now, all of us have made some choices in life that are not the best, but in order to fix our problem, we have to again admit and acknowledge that we chose the wrong man, and we're never going to choose the wrong man or the wrong woman again once we know what the standard is. Then we won't have to, Dr. Harrell, worry about a baby mama or a baby daddy. Do we? Maybe Justice Jackson doesn't know what a woman is, but I do. And God has a purpose for a woman. And when none of us are independent, he made us interdependent so we could hold on to our humility so that we'd never lose our humanity. See, the mistake that we make is that we think we're independent and all of us need each other.
That's right.
You know that. But
That's
unfortunately, trying to be like the slave master's children, we've become so arrogant until even if we get a little money, we think we don't need nobody. When a health crisis can take you down so fast, you'll see just how much we need each other.
Mm.
Now, a baby mama, that's dysfunctional because we should marry. Remember back in the day,
Mhm.
Dr. Antoinette, when
Yes.
we courted and the father vetted the boys that talked to his daughter, or the uncle vetted the boys, or we told one of, see, we got to get back to traditional Black
Mhm.
family values in order to solve these problems. And those of us who know Black family values, such as yourself and Dr. Ware, and look at this young brother Bobby, what kind of family he comes from. Well,
Mhm.
these are the people who we got to push to the forefront.
That's right. That's right.
Because now, stopping at this point, Dr. Ware, the Bible does say that there would be a new heaven and a new earth coming down. And that means new leadership,
Mhm.
a leadership that is not so materialistic, but has an
Mhm.
actual value system
Mhm.
must be put before our people and let the people choose. Somebody said a lot of our people don't know right from wrong. My question is why? It's because we've been too silent.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you said, Dr. Antoinette, that silence is what?
It's consent.
It's
It's
consent.
consent. If you don't say anything, it is consent. I want to go to Pastor Ware. Thank you, Brother Lewis. And look, you all are making some very, very great points. And there's a lot of comments in the chat where people are joining in. And these are the type of conversations. Someone said, should we embarrass them by talking about them
Yeah.
and not, as everybody would say, well, they have that freedom to express themselves. Have we went too far, brother, Dr. Ware, with this freedom of expression?
I
Have we
want to
went too
express.
far? Unmute yourself, Dr. Ware.
There's a scripture that says open rebuke is
Mhm.
better than secret love. It's about
Teach,
calling
Pastor.
it's about calling people into a level of accountability.
Mhm.
And what I really believe, as Brother Lewis and Brother Bobby, I keep saying I'm enjoying you all, and to you, Miss Antoinette, again, all honor to you. Now, if we think about this, a hard reset. This is what I believe that God spoke to me a few years ago, that we're in need of a hard reset. When you look at that hard reset, some men can afford a soft reset because they've got these good values inside themselves, and all they need to do is just strengthen what remains. But there's some people, and there's some people in our culture that just need a complete hard reset. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, that hard reset is doing like my father, my uncles, and my brothers would do. They would almost grab you by the shirt, look you in the eye, and say, "You ain't supposed to be doing this. Are you
That's right.
supposed to be doing this?"
Mhm.
Our young Black men need that tough love. Many of
Mhm.
them have been um, they have been feminized and have a very soft role, and they need that tough love. They need
Mhm.
somebody to get in
Amen.
their face and tell them, this is
Amen.
what you should be doing for your family. This is
Mhm.
what
Amen.
you should be doing for your children. This is what you, and we have that ability to help them. The Bible says that the heart of the king is in his hand, and he can turn it where the way he wants. So God
Mhm.
will do that inside job
Right.
as long
Right.
as they're willing, which is why David prayed, create in me a clean heart. Renew, there's that word, hard reset. Renew the right spirit within me. That's what we need. We need a fresh renewal in our young Black men so that they could understand that the path they're on isn't the path that they're supposed to be on, that there is some values and some norms that are part of our culture that can make them be outstanding men. And by the way, teaching them that they didn't start in slavery, because that's what they taught us in school, that the
Mhm.
beginning of the Black man was slavery. But there's a rich history before then. And when they find those things out, then that makes them want to celebrate who they really are.
And I want to say something too, because I'm going back to Bobby. I remember visiting someone's house, and their 21 years old son was just lying on the sofa. And this had to be about 2 o'clock in the day. I remember when we came up, you had to be sick to be laying in the bed at 2 o'clock in the day. So we got to go back and
Absolutely.
say, what are we doing? What, as Bobby said earlier, we're giving them things, or they are giving them things that they did not have. And the things that they have put in their children's hands, I have never seen so many women, and I'm going to say this and I stand with it, living their lives through their daughters. Now I'm going to say this. If she had a whorish attitude and she reincarnated herself in her daughter, and how do you see it? You see it by she doesn't care how provocative her daughter dress. She's
right.
dressing a child that's 12 years old like somebody 25 years old, long hair down to the butt, the fake eyelashes overly made up. My mother would not have ever. And listen to me, women, stop making your daughters grow up before their time. Let them be a child as long as they can be a child, because when they become a woman, it's a horse of a different story. And I'm more than sure that most of you who tried to be grown before your time, you know what it's like. You know what the challenges are. It's not cute. It's
That's
not
right.
cute when your daughters are almost naked going to the prom. What are you doing? What are you thinking? What are you doing? Are you dressing your daughters up? To me, it reminds me of I'm going to dress her for the occasion. Okay?
That's
And
right.
what is that? I am going to dress my daughter. She's cute. And that's all you hear these days. She's so pretty. She's so pretty. But you don't hear the things that we need to hear. This was not something I heard. My confidence came from the love and the teachings of the elders, women, and men in my family.
Man.
Okay, the teachings. So, do you all think that men today and women today are living their lives through their young children? Pastor Well, I see you nodding your head.
Yes, ma'am. I think that, what do they call that term? Vicariously living, and they're vicariously living the things that they. I mean, we could take this even to a socioeconomic place. There are certain people that will say, "I didn't have this. I wasn't able
Mhm.
to get this. I wasn't able to afford this. So I'm gonna buy my kids everything." That's not always the best thing to do, because when you spoil, spare the rod or spare discipline, you spoil that particular child. And there are so many things when people are vicariously trying to live their life through their children, they're trying to make them be what they wish they would. But you know what? There is a Jeremiah 29:11. God has a plan for everybody. He has a purpose for everybody. He has an expected end. So you may be able to do better for them than your parents did for you, but you can't make them you, because what you'll end up doing is spoiling that particular child or putting them on a path that's not the path that's meant for their life. And then you've failed, and then they've failed as well. Unmute yourself, Miss Antoinette.
Okay, Brother Lewis, let's go to you, and then I want to come to Mr. Ginn and ask him, do he think that young people today in their 30s, because the new 30s sometimes seem like the new 14, 15, you know? So, you know, Brother Lewis and then Brother Bobby. Unmute yourself. No,
He's not muted. I think it's something with the mic. It's
Can you
something.
hear me?
we can hear you now.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with your child wanting to go on the path that you're on if you're on the right path. In fact, there is a righteous work that righteous men do, that they want somebody to come behind them. And this is really truly the value of and the mercy of a woman, because a woman can make you help, and she can perfect your ideas through her righteous and sacred womb. This is real. A good child maketh a glad father. But a foolish child is the heaviness of who? His
Mhm.
mother.
That's right.
So we have a relationship where we are interconnected, if you will, power source, and we can become a manifestation of God or obviously the devil, depending on who we submit to.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing of it is that we have to really start thinking about ourselves. In Pastor, I'd like to call it the Trinity, past, present, and future. There's something that I'm doing now, and I'm very much aware of it, that is affecting unborn generations.
Mm-hmm.
But when you dumb the people down to the point to they don't even understand that what they do now dictates to what we'll have in the future. Think about it. As slaves, that was part of the reason why we wanted to be free, so that we could have an inheritance. Slaves didn't have an inheritance. The slave master didn't give you anything. And what's happening now is the sins of the fathers and the mothers are being passed on, as you would say it, Dr. Antoinette, to the children. Can I make just a quick point?
Mm-hmm.
When we sit back and have a woman like Sukiana up on stage telling little girls how great it is to have a man urinate on you, and then bringing a man on the stage and bringing women on the stage to urinate and now defecate and eat
really?
the defecation.
And wait,
See,
what?
I'm not supposed to say that because you's a Muslim. You supposed to be up here and dick. No, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it.
What are they doing on stage?
They're calling people up to urinate on them, defecate on them, and then eat the defecation. Now, people our age, I'm 56, we would say this is ridiculous. We could never do that. But we're becoming arrogant. These social engineers, many of them come from a certain community, are paying the most degenerate and filthy people in our community big money. They're paying them big money to do this, to get my little granddaughters involved in not just being promiscuous women, but the kind of woman that would eat dung.
Oh, please. Yeah.
And so the thing of it is that we're in a war.
Who would have ever thought that we would be holding this type of conversation about something that's so
Black people
and so inhumane? But we gotta talk about it, and we gotta stop being silent about these things.
What is happening is they wanted to justify slavery to the common Caucasian. So Nick Fuentes, you should look him up. He's saying that his ancestors were not politically correct to enslave Black people, but they were in fact correct. And this is how come you get all of this changing of history in the schools, to where they don't want to teach the true history. They want to give you a revisionist version of history, because you may not believe it, but I know they want to put us back into physical slavery. And the way you justify putting somebody back into physical slavery is the same way you justify putting them into jail. You say that they are a savage and a degenerate and too emotional to control themselves, and so for the betterment of themselves and society, to keep you from eating dung and having a man urinate on you.
That's low.
I'm going to put you in a cage.
Wow.
And the pastor, not this pastor, is not preaching hardcore enough truth about the morality and the decency that our ancestors long to embrace. Black women were promiscuous. I'm not that old. I can remember going to school with Black girls who were proud to be virgins. And I'm a natural man. I'm not a homosexual. And I'm not throwing off at anybody. But I
want to say this for the sake of time before we go to Bobby. I want to say this because
I want him to stop it.
I want to say when I came up in the church, I heard them talk about Virgin Mary, but they never talked about what the virginity meant to young girls. So the church
Right.
needs to do a better job at speaking to the truth of issues. In if you're not getting it at home, you're not getting it from the community, you're not getting it from school. So it's a different. Bobby, at you. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. So then, that peer pressure comes into place.
Let's talk
That
about that.
everyone else is doing it, so we should do it. And there's no one to say stop. There's no one to say, no, that's not how you do that. That is not the way that you do that. You have to respect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's whatever the crowd is doing. That's the way that they're leaning toward. And to
Mm.
answer your question earlier, I just believe that in this generation, so much entitlement has been created
Yes.
for children. For instance, the young man lying on the couch at 2 o'clock in the day. That entitlement has been put in place because he feels that I stay here and this is my home as well as my parents' home, and I should be able to soak up the air.
And he's a man, and I'm grown now.
I'm grown, but here's the problem with that. The parent feels that it's okay because I went out and I worked as hard as possible. I don't want my child to go through that. That's absolutely wrong. Because the reason that parent is still getting up and going out and working while that child is laying on the sofa is because their parents instilled that work ethic into them. But you're passing your child by. Your child is now becoming entitled. And so then what happens is he feels that in the real world, because he's grown now, that
Mm-hmm.
there's so many other things that he's entitled to. He doesn't want to go work for something, so he'll go steal it. That's not how the real world works. So many times, oftentimes, as young people, we look at what everyone else is doing. And I keep going back to this because I saw that as a young adult, as a young child growing up. I grew up in my household and I grew up in this generation. So there were times where it was like, hey, uh, Dad, I want to do this. Everyone else is doing that. Why can't I? Why is this? I'm being made fun of. And my dad will sit me down and say, this is why you can or cannot do. And it would put me in a place because I had a clear understanding. We talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Lenny Walls, you know my Uncle Earl, they would bring those things to the light. This is why you shouldn't do it. Because you have this certain level of respect for yourselves. My sisters, they knew that, of course, twerking wasn't out back then, but it was certain things you just were not going to
Oh
do
no.
because it will start up high and come down low. But that's just the way it was
Right.
then. And we're
Right.
missing so much of that. But that creation of entitlement is something that needs to be addressed because
Thank
many times we feel that, and this generation, especially now, say for instance, the 21-year-olds and the 22-year-olds, even the 30-year-olds, they feel that everything is just should be there. However they want it. I need $20. I'm gonna ask somebody for it. Go work for it.
Yeah.
Get a
Yeah.
job. Oh, I don't want to work at McDonald's. I don't want anyone to see me passing fast food. But you also didn't go to school to get an education, to work somewhere else that you may
That's
want.
right.
You
That's
didn't
right.
go as far as the extent to put in the hard work to get a trade, whatever it is, to get where you want. You want a Mercedes on a McDonald's income.
Mm-hmm.
There's just certain things we're so much is fast tracked. And I know I'm over time, but this idea of everything is so fast tracked is the problem for
Thank
sure.
you.
Because
Thank you.
everything is we want it, we want it, we want it.
That's right.
It happens over time.
I want to go to Pastor Webb. Thank you, Mr. Ginn. That was very, very on point. Dr. Ware, this conversation with the young men addressing the girls as bruh, bruh, dog, bruh, dog. Um, just when did the women start allowing a man to call them dog or bruh?
And see, Miss Dr. Antoinette, this is what Brother Lewis and Brother Bobby are talking about. Brother Lewis made a statement. He mentioned a word, social engineers, and I like that. But all of these cultural influences that have come through media, right? Going back, if you start going back to the 70s, and I mean, it didn't just start now. If you watch Sanford and Son, it was funny, but look at the level of disrespect that Lamont had for his father that was portrayed on that television show. I mean, it was a high level of respect. And when you saw black shows begin to evolve, they they portrayed this image of lewdness, disrespect, say what you want, express yourself the way, and it really helped to perpetuate this whole idea of the black family being a confused family, all messed up. So fast forwarded up to the 90s and the 2000s, where hip hop had this major influence on our young black culture. And so the gangster rap and all of this stuff. And as Brother Bobby was just saying, you're working at McDonald's just so you can cover up the fact that you're slinging drugs on the street. And so because you want to have that Mercedes, because the Mercedes is a status influence. It's so that I can look a certain way. And bringing all of that the way up to now, 2023. So now you got the same culture, the same media culture that's saying bro and dog and all of this stuff, and people pick that up as though that's an endearment term, that you should talk like they talk. But the thing is, that gives us an opportunity, those of us who have some values and some norms and some education, to start not dummying or turn down ourselves, but speak with clarity, speak with intelligence, represent a culture of black people where people can, because they've got to have something to look up to. Because when we were growing up, my father worked in the factory, the deacons at the church, the people, I looked up to them. Now it's a sad thing for the young people to have to look up to, no disrespect, but the average rapper on television, or the average basketball player, whatever. That's okay within his right. But then they're going to learn their norms and values from that culture, and they're going to set that as their goal, which is not a realistic goal. But if we in the community that are walking and seeing them every single day and can just teach them even something as simple as when they want to, give you the daps and all this stuff, stick your hands out. Give me a handshake. Shake it firm. Look me in my eye, because that's going to be representative of your character. All of this other stuff will push you away and make people stereotype you. So all of this bruh, dog, all of that stuff is social media influence, and we've got to rise up to that place and make ourselves the head and not the tail.
And on that note, I do want to say to the young women that called each other bitches and hoes, I'm taking my disclaimer, but I'm speaking to the language that they understand. You should not be answering to that, nor should you call anybody out of their name. And so we have to raise our frequency and say, hey, no. I would not allow a woman to speak to me that way, nor would I speak to another woman that way.
Absolutely.
And so, yes. And so now with all of this saying, how do we get messages like this? Because we're going to have the women to come on. The next group of people to address it will be the women. And then we want women and men coming together where we all can just sit down and have this discussion as to say, what is the solution now? How do we begin? How do we begin to filter out this garbage that has plagued our community, to go back to where we was with standards, respect for each other, for our elders, and for our community? What do we do now?
Because the truth will set us free from the filth and indecency. The truth will set us free from a slave mentality. The truth will set us free from a Negro attitude and a degenerate attitude and an irresponsible attitude. Some of the comments, I believe it was a sister maybe said that Black women were always promiscuous, even during slavery. That's a lie. Black women weren't promiscuous during slavery. Black women were raped during slavery. They mentioned mulattoes. This was not something that, in fact, Black women should be ridiculed for. And I'm against that. Black women were raped. Black women have been forced in a position that is not theirs. Now, I'm not talking about what's going on now, but in order to fix our problem, we got to agree what truth is. For the scriptures teach, how can two walk together except they have agreement? And me and Brother Bobby and Dr. Ware and you, we have an agreement here. what we've done is waste a lot of time historically on arguing about religions. We want the truth. And if the truth is coming from my brother who's a Christian, I want to be under the truth.
Mm-hmm.
If the truth is coming from a nationalist, I want to be under the truth. And so, how can they know the truth if we don't have nobody bold enough to tell that truth that'll set them free? See? And what we've done is, again, we've allowed people to misrepresent us. I'm very concerned, and I tell my wife this every day. All the stuff I send you, Dr. Antoinette, and others, I send to my wife to look at because I'm concerned. The last righteous image we had that's being destroyed every day was the image of our mama, the image of the Black woman. And I am very much appalled that the image of my Black mama's husband has been destroyed. See, Big Mama had a husband, and I believe that we should have a father and a mother in order to have a Black decent family. So we got to start with the truth. Mm-hmm. I'm so encouraged by you, Dr. Antoinette, because not only do you tell the truth, quiet as it's kept, you dig for the truth. I've seen you out speaking to the ancestors to get voices and been with you when you dug up the roots of my family and other families. And this is so necessary in order to resurrect the self-esteem in the Black man and the Black woman, letting us know that we didn't come from just nothing. Part of the reason why Black women are in the shape that they are in is because nobody has told them just how great they really are to the extent that they believed it, because if they believed it, they would never lower their standards to.
And there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain coming out of our community. I want to go to you, Mr. Ginn. There's a lot of pain coming out of our community. There's a lot of brokenness that's coming out of our community. At this point, we can identify all the problems. At this point, we need to be looking at solutions and really fast on the down spiral. What would you suggest would be a great start besides being truthful?
I think that these very ones who are taking on these roles as the gangsters, as the women who are dealing with the low self-esteem issues, not knowing that they're dealing with low self-esteem issues, because a lot of this is subconscious.
Right.
The men who are not being men, give them an opportunity to make their argument. Because, of course, there isn't one. If you ask for a true foundation as their why, their reason why, there isn't one. And then ask them, are you willing to be taught? Are you willing to learn something different? Because what's really happening is no one is bringing this to the forefront. It's like everyone else has said, we've talked about it amongst ourselves. Just like we're doing here today, we're discussing it, and we have some who are joining in with us. But are we hearing their side? Then counteracting, rebutting, showing them why you have the wrong idea of life. Because in all reality, that's really what it is. You have the wrong idea of what life truly is. Because our people had true happiness at one point. There's so many of ourselves, and we see this more now than ever, committing suicide.
That's right.
Battling with so much. Because there's no one to help you. There's no one that for you to talk to about your issues, to realize what it is that you're truly missing. Some people are just missing pure OD love.
Love. That's right. That's right.
Something
and looking for love in all the wrong places.
And so you're searching for it in all these places, and it's all the wrong places. It's just like someone brought up earlier. I can't remember if it was Brother Lewis or Dr. Ware. We're marrying people who we know are not good for us. I saw a comment that said that even a female animal won't allow a male animal who doesn't qualify to mate with them. That's true. I see it all the time on the farm. If she's not ready, Mr. Bull is not going to get any action, and vice versa. There's a respect that's there, and it's nature, natural respect. That's just nature. Certainly, we know God has automatically put those things in our hearts, in our minds. It's there, but we have to have someone to turn it.
Thank you. Pastor Way, I want to go to you because a lot of times I come across a lot of different flyers that I see on Facebook where some churches are really, um, we just got something crazy came through.
Yeah,
Uh,
you got
yeah.
hate. There's hate. There's hate.
Uh-huh.
It's love. Yeah.
I put them out. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Uh, but that's okay. This is a deep subject. So
Yeah.
let us know we're doing the right thing. Let me see if I can block them out.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, they're proving our point.
Yeah, that's it,
We
brother.
have an enemy.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
that's what I want my sons to be aware of and my granddaughters to be aware of. We have an enemy. And God is going to bless us with total victory
That's
over
right.
our enemy.
well, we're on the right track right now.
We're discussing
We
the
are.
issues that can be rectifying
Mm-hmm.
our problems. So that's why we're dealing with what you see there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to keep on addressing our community because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Pastor Ware, coming back to you, I would like to talk about the flyers that I see circulating from different churches. There's a $35 registration fee for this conference and $100 to attend this conference. But when I look at what the topics are, I don't see any of the topics on the agenda to address issues in our community. So the $35 or the $100, I'm not saying that people do not have money. If they're trying to reach the masses of the people, why is there what do you think about these fees that they charge to help somebody who's in need?
Well, I believe Jesus set the example, and he told when he originally sent the 70 out, he said, "Don't worry about it. Don't take no purse. Don't do anything. Go out there, do what you got to do. If they receive you, that's good. If they don't, right, don't even bid them farewell. Shake the dust off your feet." I think we've got to understand that there's a holistic need for man. We've got to share our time that we spend preaching about the things within the scripture, and we got to also meet the needs of the whole man.
That's right. That's right.
And when we meet the needs of the whole man, we've got to do some re-education on economics. We got to do some
Mhm.
re-education on relationship. We're getting ready to, one of our fearless leaders, a couple of them are on here tonight, Latika Wiley, Tabby Terrell Carter. We're getting ready to do what we're calling a rearrange conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're going to have some real kingdom conversations where we get a chance to come out of the pulpit and just be real and talk to people where they are. The church has pushed so many people away. And I believe that whatever we have, the Bible tells us freely receive, freely give. We understand there's expenses that go along with conferences and things like that. But in the short amount of time that God is allowing us to stay on this earth, we've got to really engage in making sure that we get the kingdom resources that have been deposited into us, especially those of us who have the values, the norms, even the spirituality. What we've got to do is be good stewards over that and figure out creative ways that we can get that to other people. And that's not always going to be in the four walls of a church building. That's not always going to be in a conference, but every opportunity, I would say every opportunity that you get to talk to a young group of people. I got a basketball hoop out here. And there's kids that say, "Do you mind if I play on your
A
basketball?"
mentorship program. That's right.
Yeah.
Mentorship.
Yeah, come on, come
Every
over here and play
church.
basketball. So then when they finish playing basketball and we sit down and I bring them some
Yeah.
water, those basic
Mm-hmm.
fundamentals of the family, teaching them, because you can't always assume. We have a program at our church called Yes Program where we teach young people skills. And one day we asked one of the young people to say grace. And they looked at us like, "What are you talking about?" They weren't church. They didn't raise up. So we had to teach them the basic fundamental of what it meant to stop and thank God for the food that you're receiving. That's part of our culture. And we assume everybody knows it. But a lot of children don't have those basic Christian values in their homes and in their life. But if we get an opportunity, share it with them.
Pastor Ware, I have seen so much classism in the church and politics in the church.
Yes.
and that has ran the young people off because it
Yes, it
ran
has.
me off.
Yes, it has.
I want to be totally transparent here. I saw it in my own family with
Yeah,
classes of people. And if you didn't meet that status, and it depends on how much money you was putting in the church, that depends what circle that you belong to. But that circle really wasn't outreaching into the community
that's right.
where the people are really hurting, where our children are crying out for help. As Mr. Ginn said, they're committing suicide, they're depressed. Some of them don't even know what's going on with them. They just know that there is a breakdown in the family structure. And I hope that everyone that's listening to this segment of the program tonight realize that we all have an obligation and a duty to reach back and save our community. As
Amen.
Marvin Gaye said, save the babies. What are we going to do to save the babies? When we save the children, we save ourselves. So what we're saying to all of you, it is not funny. It is not funny to see the things that is happening, that our young women and our young men are fighting in the street. Our young women are almost naked now. There's nothing else. They're walking the street with thongs on, almost naked. Please, people in the family, if the family says something, and I know I'm guilty of that because my children tell me you always have something to say. And as long as I'm living, and as long as I'm a mother, and as long as I'm a grandmother, I'm going to always have something to say. Because you want to know something? When you stop hearing this voice, that means I'm 6 feet under the ground, and you'll be the main one. Come to the cemetery. I'm going to talk to mama. I have nothing to say from the grave. You better listen to everything that I say. And like Mr. Ginn said, I don't care what the other household did. In this household, we don't do that.
Amen.
And
As for me and my house.
Amen.
I will not bend because somebody else's mama bend over and gave into the children. So if we stop trying to be our children's friends and be a parent, I told my son, baby, when you came into this world, I was 34 years old. So I was already experienced when he told me one day, you don't know anything. That's you don't know anything. I said, really? I said, I tell you what, if I don't know anything, you know even less. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to realize we have to set those standards, set the respect. Do not lower it, whatever it is. My son, he's 31 years old now. He's still talking about when I locked the door when he had a curfew. He's talking about at 15 years old, my door was locked. If I say be in the house, be in the house. When my son went in the room and slammed the door while I was talking to him, I went outside, got the axe, I chopped the door down. And the door stayed down until the door stayed down for 5 years. You have nothing I want to see. I gave birth to you. I bathed you. I cleaned. I've already seen it. Right now, since you can slam my door, you will not slam any doors because in the jailhouse door, you can't slam their doors. They slam the door. So the parents got to understand you cannot be your child's friend and still be a parent because there's mothers out here that's calling their children, the daughters and mother call each other bees. Hey, B, what you doing? I wouldn't be alive if I called that to my mother.
Mm.
Bobby, you'd have been had this body or somebody, richer than somebody,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
long
I
time.
don't never met you, Nick. I wouldn't met my cousin.
And you wouldn't even have to open the casket, baby, because it wouldn't be nothing. I'll be beat up so bad they couldn't even identify me. So but we just want to say, come on, community, we got to clean it up.
Miss Antoinette, can I
Yeah.
say something real brief? It's
Mm-hmm.
ironic that you said this. I was teaching a Bible study today, and let me say this as a representative of the Christian community. Let me say to those who are listening and those on this panel that I apologize on behalf of the church because the church has misrepresented the kingdom mandate that God has given us. When you said what you said, and a lot of that has been through social construction and how the black church that was once the hub of the community. It was the schoolhouse. It was the educational place. It was the place where they would meet to build the bus Montgomery bus boycott. All of these things were the hub. The church was the hub, and so this whole prosperity gospel that came into the black church took the church in the wrong direction. And so you have churches in the community that are almost the Willie Lynch syndrome. You have churches that are in competition over what church looks the best and who's got the best church bus and who's got the best outfits and all of that stuff. But the truth of the matter is, when Jesus walked the earth, he gave us a mandate. He told us to go into all the world, preach the gospel. We have a mandate to reach the lost. We have a mandate to reach the community. And this really short story that I told this morning in Bible study, I think will kind of encapsulate my thought on that. 1998, there was a hurricane in Honduras. And the hurricane was so powerful that there was a bridge that stood there named Chalatuca Bridge. And when this hurricane hit, it was called Hurricane Mitch. The force of the wind was so powerful. The wind itself dug a new trench over beside the bridge. And the water that was under the bridge ran from under the bridge over into this new trench that had been dug by that hurricane. Ironically, tourists to this day go and look at this beautiful bridge because it withstood the hurricane. But here's the problem. A bridge is meant to serve over water, over a structure that you need to go over. And people go and they look at the bridge and say, wow, look at this beautiful bridge. It survived a hurricane. But if you look at a picture, water's over here, bridge is over here. This is the condition of the church, especially the black church, that we are these well-constructed buildings, but we're not over the water. Because if they could take the bridge and put it back over the water, then it would be serving its purpose. And that's the purpose of the church. We're supposed to move in the direction and in the area where there's a need. Not just a beautiful building to say on Sundays that we got a beautiful church, we got a beautiful edifice, we got all of this stuff, but the needs in the community. The poverty that's in the communities. You go, I'm right across the river from North St. Louis. You go over there and you can literally count on every block the church.
Yeah.
But every night there's high crime, there's high poverty. There's no
every black community
denominational. So on behalf of the church, we've got to go back to 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name would humble themselves. That's the first step. We got to humble ourselves and realize we didn't get it right, but we have a chance to get it right, working with other people in the community. If we would humble ourselves, pray, seek his face, repent, turn from our wicked ways. The scripture says, then we would hear from heaven, he would forgive sin, and he would heal the land. We have to repent and get back to doing what it is we're supposed to do. That's how I met you, Miss Antoinette. Back in 2010 and 11, I'm here in Illinois, and I came and connected with you way down in Louisiana because my goal was whatever we can do to help the needy.
That's
and
right.
Here we are 12 years later. We're still doing it, still going out into the community. They may not ever come into the building, but guess what? The bridge is going to move with the water. We're not just going to be a building that looks good, but not serving its purpose. And I believe that that's our mandate. That's how we begin to teach people to respect the church again and respect the leadership in the church when they see the church present in the community, seeding into the community and making changes in the community. I just wanted to share.
Thank you so much. Thank you. For the sake of time, we have about 10 more minutes. I would like each of you to give us a closing statement, Brother Bobby, and then coming over to Brother Lewis.
All right, sure. Once again, I just would like to thank each of you, the panelists and our host, Dr. Harrell, for just being willing to have this discussion. Of course, we know that you're very outspoken, always have been. I've enjoyed our other two panelists. And what I would like to say is to our community is be prepared for the conversations because they're coming.
They're coming.
We're going to be reaching out to each of our communities. And, you know, if you can, don't take it the wrong way. But if you do, that's okay, too, because hurt feelings also help hearts that need to be guided. You know, and lastly, what I would say is take it like with a grain of salt.
That's right.
To know that we're only trying to mold us to where our ancestor brought us from.
Yeah.
Because if not, we're going backwards.
Yes, sir.
In leaps and bounds. Yes.
It's obvious if we just sit back and open our eyes, we're backwards. Things are going, the jailhouse are overflowing. They're sending our people, local people. I had 2 people couldn't make the funeral because the parish had to send them way off and they couldn't get here in time for small, heinous little crimes that they had committed. So my thing is to our community in Tangipahoa Parish, Meet Louisiana and abroad, our Florida parishes, conversations are coming your way. They're going to be
Got to
held.
raise the standards. We have to raise it.
We are coming.
Yes.
Be prepared.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Brother Lewis?
I'm hoping and praying that at some point all of us can get together. I'd love to host you, or y'all come to Louisiana, or if we could get together and have this conversation and maybe even film it together. There's something that I think is important to cover before we close out, and that is God did not tell Moses to go tell my people, go integrate with Pharaoh. He told Moses to go tell Pharaoh to let his people go. And for the past 40 to 50 years, we were socially engineered into integrating with a people who God decided that he gonna judge. And the thing of it is that we're in disobedience to God. After 400 years of so-called slavery and 100 years of more of so-called freedom, we're going backwards since we integrated. We lost over 21 million acres of land, according to the book, The Death of Black America by Aaron Rhea. Our children are being systematically destroyed because they're being socially engineered to be bisexual at best. And the thing of it is that we're in denial. We need to have a conference together where all of the people who are pushing decency can get together. And I'd like for us to do it out on the land, because land is the basis of freedom. We'll talk about that another time. But the thing of it is that God didn't tell us to integrate. And this is not coming from a hateful heart, but God allowed our ancestors to suffer in a way so that he could take us to the top and we could be the perfect leaders and never do to other people what has been done to us. So we can't, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. We cannot say that we're obeying God under integration and think we can make our people clean living at the bottom of a toilet where everybody else is defecating and urinating on us every day of the week. So thank you, Dr. Antoinette Harrell. I'm honored to meet you via internet, Dr. Ware. And Brother Bobby, you're not too far for me to come visit you, because I want to meet you. And I'm so proud of you as a younger man standing up for morality and decency. I was 20 in my early 20s, but I'm proud of you because you're really the superstar, young man. And I pray that God blesses you and your family legacy with great success.
Thank you, Brother Lewis. Thank you. Pastor Ware, your closing?
My closing, first of all, again, Dr. Antoinette, I honor you so greatly. You mean a lot to me and to the community. What you've done tonight, I believe, is the beginning of many conversations.
Absolutely.
Brother, God bless you, man. A great man. When I meet you, I want to meet you alive, right? Since you, I want to meet you alive. And then to Brother Lewis Ali, man, just a articulate brother, man. Your charisma is much of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So both of you brothers, great job tonight. The last thing I think I would say is we have to, starting tonight, everyone that's hearing, make sure we filter and we censor the garbage that we're letting in. Make sure we censor and we filter the garbage that our children. And so if we're going to do this hard reset, they'll tell you, if you don't have this data backed up, you may lose it all. And I really believe that we're at a place, especially with this generation, this young generation, they need a hard reset because the things that they've been influenced by through social media, through all of this stuff, it's just got them, as the young folks would say, cray cray. They literally are cray cray, and some of the stuff that they're doing. So they need a hard reset. But some of us older people, we need a hard reset because we cannot go forward with bitterness, with hate, with unforgiveness, with strife. If we let these things go, we'll be better for the generation that's coming behind us. And I believe there's still time to turn this thing around.
Yes, it is.
Because as Brother Bobby and Brother Lewis both said, we're going backwards. And we can't afford to go backwards. We can't afford to go back. We've got to get some basic family values. We've got to go back to helping one another. Quit biting and devouring one another. Brother Lewis mentioned about us doing a conference down there. Man, if you do it, I'm there, and I'm going to support you because you are my brother. And many times within our community, if somebody talks about doing something, that spirit of jealousy begins to creep in, and I don't want to help you because I don't want you to get. No, in our community, we have to realize that we've come from a long way and we've got a long way to go, but we're going to get there by humbling ourselves and helping each other. And so I'm excited about that. Thank you again,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Antoinette. This was powerful on tonight.
I want to read a comment before Ms. Taylor said, I think it's important to have these conversations with mixed generations, young and old included, so that everyone's voice can be heard. Working with the youth showed me that they want to hear a lot of what's being said if you are not listening to them.
Yeah.
So I would definitely take that into consideration. And the next topic, we'll be talking to the women. And we certainly want you all to tune in to listen to what the women have to say. And yes, Brother Lewis, you have my support, whatever we need to do to get this going, because we need these conversations to be everywhere. This video will be up on YouTube. You can share it, you can go back, you can listen to it. But I just want to say in my closing, I want to thank each of you for this valuable information. But one thing I want the young women to walk away with tonight, listen to what Bobby, a very young man said that uh, they may look at you, but if you don't want to be somebody's wife or someone with respect, listen to what he said, because this is a young man saying this. He's telling you, what a young man would look in hopes of having someone decent in their lives. And so we will have the young men to come on. I want the young men to come on. I want them to come on. Look like they got through again, but I'm about to block them out again. This conversation is just I put the user in timeout. But nevertheless, we're going to have the young men and young women to come on so we can talk about raising up that respect with them. And so once again, I want to thank each one of the panelists. Blocked them again. Each one of the panelists for being here tonight. Thank you for this conversation, one of many that is yet to come. And to all of you that's listening in the chat room, we thank you for your comments and all the beautiful comments that you made. Now we got to put it into action. So this is a call to action. If you want this panel discussion in your church, in your community, we're happy to make that happen. But it's time that we start talking about it and reset ourselves and raise our standards to be what the Heavenly Father want us to be so that he can bless us. Thank you to each one of you, and may the Almighty bless you. Thank you for being with us. Good
All right,
night.
everyone, have a good evening.
You all too. Be blessed.